guys, and welcome to my brand new channel. My name is Emily, and I've been a memory keeper or scrapbooker for about 6 years now, which I know is new compared to some of you. But I recently had the amazing opportunity to go to Ali Edwards' story camp, which is just this incredible weekend. There's so much I could say about it, but the bottom line is I walked away from it just feeling so inspired and with kind of a new perspective on scrapbooking. So I wanted to start this channel to share some of my layouts and my processes with all of you. So the layout that I have planned for today is kind of a fun story I wanted to tell about the day from the lens of my cat. We are in quarantine right now, starting to open up a little bit, but I'm working from home. And so I have kind of this rare vantage point of seeing my cat during the day. And I just thought it would be kind of fun to document that. So the layout that I have planned is kind of an angled layout, and I have been looking at a lot of quilt patterns recently. My sister-in-law is making a quilt, and so I kind of felt inspired to do sort of like a bricklayer style quilt with different like pieces of paper layered on the bottom. So we'll see how it goes. The paper that I'm using is from the Good Old Days collection from Studio Calico and Ali Edwards collaborating together. That kit is just so amazing. I love every single piece of it, and that's why I don't have much of it remaining. But I really liked this 12 by 12 sheet of journaling cards that really go together nicely. I love using matching journaling cards because it really just takes the guesswork out of pattern matching and color matching. And then I used the majority of the sheet from this yellow sheet that so I just had a little bit left, and I thought it would be great for this purpose. So I wanted to make my strips of paper about the width of a medium-sized washi tape roll. So I measure just a medium-sized washi tape roll that I had, and it turns out it's about 3/4 of an inch wide. So I decided to make my paper strips from the journaling cards about 3/4 of an inch wide. So I'm using the back of the journaling card on this one. It's a really cute pattern. I'll try to take some good photos so you can see more zoomed in. It's like a hand-drawn blue grid pattern that's really cute. And so I just start cutting this one and then a bunch more into little strips that are 3/4 of an inch wide. And I'm kind of just starting to pick random journaling cards that I think would look good together, even though really all of them are coordinated and they all look really good together. So since they are journaling cards, they are all 3 inches by 4 inches. And so the strips that I'm cutting end up all being 3 inches wide. So I've got 2 pieces of scrap paper, the dark gray and the yellow, that were great opportunities to be able to vary the length a little bit so that when I'm doing the bricklaying pattern, they won't all end up being having the seams line up, which is what I did not want. I always struggle to use pattern paper especially when I really love it, because I will just sit there and think that I need to wait for the perfect project to use it. But more and more, I've been trying to challenge myself to just use up paper that I like and to try to just stash bust as much as I can, because I certainly don't start to like paper more the longer it sits in my stash. Kind of the opposite happens. So layouts like this are really fun for me to use up a lot of patterned paper and some product that I really like, but also tell a story that is important that you can look back on later that's actually meaningful. Not that every story has to be. Some are just fun, like this one. So the first thing I am going to do is get the angle that I want with my photos. It's not measured or anything. It's just kind of a random angle that's a little bit above halfway on the page. So I'm using the ruler to try to help guide and make a straight line there. And I'm just adhering them down with Elmer's rolling adhesive. I just get it at Michael's. And they're going off the page a little bit, which is exactly what I wanted, because I'm going to trim off the edges. And it's going to look like it just kind of flows off the page, which is just what I wanted. So I'm kind of arranging these little quasi-washi strips in no particular order, trying to vary where the seams match up and make sure that there's no two patterns directly next to each other. Just kind of putting it where I want. And then I adhered all of them down with Elmer's adhesive. For the top, above the photos, I wanted to put some strips that were a little bit narrower than the strips on the bottom. So I took some of the strips that were remaining and just cut them down to about 1/2 inch. And again, had them just sort of run off the edge of the page to make it look like they are just running off and the pattern continues. And I just adhere all of them to the top of right directly above the photos. I get all of my photos printed at Persnickety Prints. If you haven't heard of them, they are just absolutely amazing. Archival prints for really reasonably priced. I don't have a photo printer. I know a lot of people feel really strongly about this issue, and it's totally personal preference. But for me, I just like to get them professionally printed. And they just look great. I love that company. So after I get these strips adhered, I just flip the page over and then cut off the edges at the angle of the page. That's what I did with the ones on the bottom, although my camera cut out, so I didn't get it on camera, but that's what I'm doing, just cutting it at the angle of the page. And voila, a lot of the majority of the page is done, at least the trickiest part of it. So I wanted to put timestamps on all of these photos, and I wanted to do it on a label so that it would stand out because all of the pages are. All of the photos are kind of varying degrees of light and dark. So I'm using the color theory labels, which are the best labels in my opinion, in color cement. Just thought that color was like a nice light gray that worked well with the color palette of this kit. And I'm using tweezers to just kind of test if I put it at the top, would it block anything? And it turns out, yes, it would block off her head. So I'm going to do it at the bottom. And I wanted to use the bigger labels. The color theory labels come in 2 sizes. And so I wanted to just cut that in half so there would be a cut edge at the bottom of the photo. So I figured it'd be easier to cut it while it's still on the wax sheet. And then I stamp them with my Ali Edwards timestamp, which is amazing. It's just a rolling stamp with, times, AM, PM, and it also has cute little icons like a geotag and a heart. And I actually use this stamp a ton. It's great. I'm stamping with Ali Edwards Pigment ink in the color Black Butte, which I don't actually know if it's pure black or a dark, dark gray. I can't really tell, but either way, I love it and I use it a ton, even though it's just a little tiny guy. It's lasted me a really long time. I'm stamping on a piece of scrap paper just so that it gives it a little bit of a backing, and also so I can do a test stamp to test the impression and see on which numbers I need to push a little harder at the top. The other thing about a pigment ink, so Ali Edwards inks are pigment inks. They are fantastic. They do take a little bit longer to dry, which is great if you're embossing, but do know, especially if you're putting them on a label where you're going to be pushing down, you can very easily smudge this ink, so it's important to let it dry fully. So I'm stamping all of the different timestamps from these photos that I took when I basically just followed my cat around, taking pictures of her throughout the day, like the paparazzi. So I stamp all of them. There's one of them that I mess up on. It's hard to make these date stamps really straight, and no matter how many times you do it. So I had to redo one of them. I let them dry, and then after I do that, I'm just adhering them to the bottom of the page so that each one of them has its own little timestamp. And I'm putting it on the bottom of the page, lining up that cut edge with the bottom of the photo. These are press prints from Persnickety. They do kind of 2 types, maybe more. I'm aware of only 2 types, the photographic prints and press prints. And the press prints are a little bit more expensive, but I really like the sheen on them, and they're kind of fun to use in a layout like this where you have a lot of photos of the same size. So I get out my box of embellishments, and these are also from the Good Old Days kit. They are circle cork embellishments and these sort of medium gray chipboard alphas, and I love, love, love both of these. I picked out the Happy Cork because I liked the color, and I also, of course, like that sentiment. And I knew that on one side I wanted to put some letters that said something about, her life or her day, and I wanted to stamp something with my tiny little letter stamps that I'll use in just a second. So I ended up writing out Luca's life, and I wasn't sure. At first I thought I wanted to put it on the top there, but I actually ended up liking it better on the bottom. And that's kind of why I like to do it on this plastic ruler, so you can kind of move it around and see where it works best before you stick it down, and then you have to peel it up and ruin the stickers and potentially your layout. So it doesn't always work perfectly when you're offloading the letters because sometimes they get messed up, which you'll see that happens. The L got stuck, but it still kind of helps you kind of know generally where things are going to go. One thing I love about the Good Old Days chipboard set is they come with a lot of punctuation. So they came with an apostrophe, so I could write Luca's life and have it be mechanically correct. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to align that left or right, but ultimately I decided to align it with a right justification just to kind of bring the eye away from that midline just a little bit. So it says Luca's life, and then what I was planning to do is stick that corkboard up on the upper left and then stamp around it with these little alpha stamps that my sister-in-law got me from Papersource. They are wonderful. They're a little sans serif letter. They're so cute. I use them all the time. I really like them. And yes, I keep my ink in an empty glossy box. More on that later. And then if I'm stamping something really small, I do like to use a platform. For years, I just used a piece of cardboard, which totally works. But for my wedding, I bought the Tim Holtz stamping platform for my envelopes, and I learned that on the back of it, it has a stamping platform, which is basically just a piece of foam, but it gives your paper a good backing to kind of push back on the stamp, and you get a really nice full impression. At some point I'll do a video where you can see the difference. It really is worth it. You don't necessarily need to buy a stamping platform, but you could pick up a piece of foam from the craft store for like $1.50. I really think that would probably work exactly the same, but it does make a big difference when you're stamping something small with a lot of detail. So after I get that done, I ended up stamping one day in, and I kind of wanted it to look like one happy day in Luca's life. Luca's my cat, obviously. And so the last thing left to do is just my journaling. So I wanted to write it along that midline, so it would kind of just blend in well with the paper strips that we've already put on. And I'm just kind of writing about what her day looked like, what she does at different points throughout the day, and how it was kind of fun to be able to witness that while I was home during quarantine, when you kind of see a little bit of a different side of her. She's not a terribly active cat. She pretty much just laid around all day, but she's very sweet. So the last thing to do is date stamp it. And I'm date stamping it with the same color that I stamped the one day in, and that's the Stazon Pigment in the color Koala Gray. I love Stazon Pigment. They're a great hybrid ink because you can use them on any surface. They're wonderful. So with the date stamp, that is it. I was really happy with how it turned out. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you liked this video, please hit the thumbs up button and click that subscribe button. I have lots of videos coming, more processes, some flip throughs, and all kinds of stuff. Thank you so much for stopping by.